The Book of Joy. By Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. This summary is brought to you by Hook My Book. This book is about the teachings of the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Tutu on joy, as well as science that has been discovered in the past few years that helps explain why humans can flourish. The book also includes exercises that readers can do to help incorporate the teachings into their own lives. Dalai Lama says, life is full of challenges and pain, and it is from this weakness that we find the possibility of true joy. Fear is inevitable, pain and death are also part of life, and the purpose of life is to find happiness by practicing the 8 pillars of joy. He believes that everyone has the same goal, no matter what their religion or culture might be. The key to finding happiness is inside of us, and it comes from our attitudes, perspectives, and reactions. The nature of true joy. The author describes how different feelings of joy can be experienced by different people. Joy is typically experienced as a feeling of pleasure and contentment, but can also be experienced in other ways, such as relief, wonder, ecstasy, and pride. There are only 4 fundamental emotions, 3 of which are negative: fear, anger, and sadness. Joy is the only positive emotion. Exploring joy is nothing less than exploring what makes the human experience satisfying. Nothing beautiful comes without some suffering. The Archbishop discusses how he has been able to maintain his joy in the face of suffering, and he cites examples such as when he was imprisoned during apartheid in South Africa and when he was fighting for an end to the oppression of blacks in South Africa. He also talks about how stress and opposition turn out to be what initiates our development in utero. If there is not enough stress and opposition, complex life like ours would never have developed. Buddhists believe that joy is the natural state, but that it can be cultivated as a skill. There is research that shows that people have a set point that determines their happiness over time, but that attitudes and actions have a great deal of influence on happiness as well. The Dalai Lama and Archbishop were discussing how looking away from oneself, lessening self-absorption, lead to happiness. They explained that when we focus on our suffering we are destined to be unhappy, but when we focus on our own joy we can experience happiness. The Dalai Lama and Archbishop emphasized that joy should be the only emotion we feel, and that we should maintain a joyful mind at all times. Pleasure and joy are different. The Hedonic Treadmill is a term coined by Greek philosopher Epicurus to describe the phenomenon in which people tend to keep going towards greater levels of pleasure, but eventually reach a point where the same amount of pleasure no longer provides the same level of happiness. Science has recently shown that the more we pursue pleasure, the more we become numb to its effects and take them for granted. The 4 circuits in the brain that are responsible for our lasting happiness are our ability to maintain positive states, our ability to recover from negative states, our ability to focus and avoid mind wandering, and our ability to be generous. The true joy lies in helping others. The Dalai Lama says that it is important to focus on your own joy and happiness, but also to strive to make the world a better place. He explains that this is done by being kind and compassionate, and wishing and doing good things for others. The obstacles to joy. The Archbishop says that although we cannot avoid all negative thoughts and emotions, we can develop mental immunity so that we are less susceptible to them. Although we cannot control the inevitability of negative thoughts and emotions, we can learn to accept them and not judge ourselves harshly for having them. People have fears to stay safe. Archbishop Tutu says that it is important to admit our fears and frailties so that we are not stupid. He also says that it is important to remember that we need one another because, without one another, we would be dead. According to the Archbishop and the Dalai Lama, when we suffer from chronic stress, it's usually because we're trying to do too many things at once and we're not able to manage our expectations and ambition. What is it that is really worth pursuing? What is it we truly need? When we see how little we really need, love and connection, then all the getting and grasping that we thought were so essential to our well-being takes its rightful place and no longer becomes the focus or the obsession of our lives. We must try to be conscious about how we live and not get swept away by the modern trance, the relentless march, the anxious accelerator. The Archbishop and the Dalai Lama are suggesting that ambition may not be the best thing for us. They are saying that our priorities might be wrong, and that we should try to focus on things that are more important than getting and grasping. Anger is a natural emotion that is felt when somebody feels frustrated, when they don't understand what is happening, or when somebody is hurting somebody else. Anger can help protect people, and it can be a tool of justice. However, anger can also be destructive if it is not controlled. The Dalai Lama and Archbishop Tutu are discussing how loneliness and alienation are growing in society, and how people are turning to religion and friendship for support. They say that in the materialistic way of life, we have lost the concept of friendship and love. The Archbishop says that synagogues, temples, and churches should do a better job of welcoming lonely people. Comparison is natural and it happens throughout the animal world. Humans are especially prone to envy because we are inherently fair and uncomfortable with inequality. Envy creates a feeling of discontent and resentment, which can be harmful to our well-being. Gratitude and motivation can help to diminish the effects of envy. The 8 Pillars of Joy. 1. Perspective. There are many different angles. The Dalai Lama and Archbishop talk about how looking at things from a wider perspective can help to reduce worry and anxiety. A perspective is a way that somebody sees things. The Archbishop said that we suffer from perspectival myopia and that this leaves us nearsighted. The Dalai Lama said that we suffer from perspectival myopia and that this leads to a lack of understanding. A wider perspective allows us to see our experience more essentially and to see the many conditions and circumstances that have led to this event. When we have a wider perspective, we are also less likely to spend our time lost in self-referential thoughts and ruminating. 2. Humility. I try to look humble and modest. The Dalai Lama and the Archbishop discuss the importance of not being too focused on one's status or superiority. None of us is immune to the all-too-human traits of pride or ego, but true arrogance comes from insecurity. Needing to feel that we are bigger than others comes from a nagging fear that we are smaller. Whenever the Dalai Lama senses this danger, he looks at a bug or some other creature and reminds himself that, in some ways, this creature is better than we are, because it is innocent and free of malice. When we realize that we are all children of God and of equal and intrinsic value, then we don't have to feel better or worse than others. 3. Humor, laughter, joking is much better. Laughter is a way to escape from the seriousness of the situation. Laughter is also a way to connect with other people. 4. Acceptance, the only place where change can begin. The Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu talk about how to live a good life. They say that we should not react to everything that happens, but instead accept it and move on. This is powerful advice because it allows us to avoid stress and anxiety. Additionally, they say that it is important to have goals and aspirations, but not to get too attached to them. 5. Forgiveness, freeing ourselves from the past. Forgiveness is important, as it allows us to release our desire for revenge or punishment. People can be forgiven even if they have done bad things, and all of us have the potential to be forgiven. 6. Gratitude, I am fortunate to be alive. The Archbishop and the Dalai Lama express gratitude for all that they have, even for difficult experiences. This perspective can help us to see the opportunities that exist in our lives, even during difficult times. Gratitude is the recognition of all that holds us in the web of life and all that has made it possible to have the life that we have and the moment that we are experiencing. Thanksgiving is a natural response to life and may be the only way to savor it. 7. Compassion, something we want to become. The Dalai Lama believes that humans are social animals and that it is in our best interest to care for one another. He also believes that everyone has a seed of compassion that is innate, but it takes time and practice to develop compassion. Compassion is not something that we are born with, but something that we learn and then use to extend our concern to others beyond our immediate family. If we are compassionate towards others, it will help us to be happier and less stressed. 8. Generosity, we are filled with joy. The Archbishop says that generosity is a natural outgrowth of compassion and that it is important for our survival. He also mentioned that generosity is often something that we learn to enjoy by doing. Generosity is not only about giving money, it is also about giving your time. It is important to have a sense of purpose in life, which is what helps you feel needed and valuable to others. A study found that people with a high sense of purpose are 23% less likely to die from all causes. Volunteering also has a positive effect on health, reducing the risk of death by 24%. Finally, with the Book of Joy, people will have a better understanding of why the world is getting better and that they can use that understanding to make the world even better. End of the summary. Thanks for listening.